Thanks for joining us. My name's Paul Sirico. I'm responsible for marketing and product strategy at FieldComm Group. And with me today is Ted Masters, who's our president and CEO. And we're going to kind of split this presentation up into two chunks. Predominantly, it's an update on what's happened within FieldComm Group over the last year and what is going on in the industry regarding digital transformation and how standards organizations are working together and collaborating to make sure that it's successful. We're going to cover three basic topics today. The first thing that I'm going to cover is the market factors that are associated with digital transformation, principally around the Namur open architecture, which has really gained a lot of leverage and gained a lot of speed, and a lot of progress is being made in defining different elements of the architecture, and it's a great roadmap for the future of digitalization in the process automation industry. After I'm completed, Ted will talk about the role of standards collaboration in facilitating transformation. Ted spends a lot of time working on partnering agreements with other standards bodies in the industry, and we're trying to work very hard to work together and make sure that the end user community is well served by the content that we develop and standards and practices that we develop. And Ted will give you an update into everything that's gone on in FieldComm Group in the last year regarding membership and some of our key strategic initiatives. But I'm going to kind of set the stage with a little bit of market factors information. This is a slide that I'm sure many of you have seen, but it's always worth spending a little bit of time discussing it. This is one of the many diagrams of the Namur open architecture. And one of the main tenets of the Namur open architecture is kind of like what you hear in the doctors say in medical professions, is first do no harm. So the logic there is that in a process facility that's been operating very well for 20 years, 30 years with a lot of existing in-place instrumentation, 4 to 20 milliamp HART devices, maybe some foundation field bus devices, some Profibus PA devices. Those plants work pretty well, so you don't really want to mess around with them. But there is a tremendous need to get additional information out of the plant. And so Namur open architecture addresses this in two ways. First, it creates a barrier. This little red triangle there is called a data diode, and it controls the direction that data can move from the plant and back into the plant. And then they've created this notion of a plant-specific monitoring and optimization layer. And we've been working a lot within that layer. And in that layer is going to be a lot of new sensors, low-cost sensors, wireless sensors, two-wire sensors, a lot of different technologies. And then all of that in turn can feed a centralized monitoring and optimization layer that runs in the cloud basically and can handle multi-plant things. But data into and out of the gray area is highly controlled in the Namur open architecture. We think, at least from the areas that we work on, there's three key things in the Namur open architecture that are relevant for FieldComm Group and for standards organization. First of all, existing instruments and protocols are not going to disappear. By the time I retire, there's still going to be HART devices in the field. People will still be manufacturing HART devices. There will still be 4 to 20 milliamp devices, and people will still be manufacturing those devices as well. And that's because, first of all, you don't want to remove stuff that's already working well. And if it ships today, it's going to be installed 20 years from now still. And then secondly, there's a certain amount of reliability and stability with the existing protocols. And as we all know, process automation is a very conservative industry, and change comes in very slowly, independent of what all the press releases might say. Second key piece of information is that new protocols will continue to emerge. And one that we're going to talk about a little bit today is called Ethernet to the Field, or Ethernet APL. Ted's going to touch on that a little bit. I'm going to touch on it. But it's essentially a two-wire Ethernet protocol that will will emerge in the market in 2021. The big launches are planned for the ACMA show in 2021, but there's been many companies working for multiple years on building the technology base for Ethernet, Ethernet to the field, Ethernet APL. So that's the second technology trend. The third technology trend is that there's a tremendous thirst for plant floor to cloud communication. So a single information model between the plant floor and the cloud is highly desired, and along those lines in the process automation specifically area, we've created the PA-DIM architecture, which is built on OPC UA. And there's a lot of other OPC technologies and information models that are coming into fruition and coming into products that will support this notion of moving data from the plant floor to the cloud. I'm going to show you some statistics now to kind of back up a little bit of what I've been saying. Late last year, FieldComm Group conducted a fairly extensive series of end-user workshops. We visited large petrochemical facilities in the Middle East, in Asia, and in India. We interviewed about 60 users across a wide variety of disciplines, maintenance workers all the way up to VPs. And people in IT backgrounds, people with OT backgrounds. And we asked them a number of questions, and I'll be publishing more of this on our website, but for today I want to highlight a couple of interesting points. First of all, digital transformation, the rate at which digital transformation will be adopted is going to be heavily impacted by security, reliability, and training. We heard over and over from talking with end users that before they put Ethernet devices down into their plant floor or into any of their critical infrastructure, they need to make sure that it's secure. As the workforce ages, current workforce is used to using a two-wire 4 to 20 milliamp handheld for device provisioning, and now they're going to have to use a computer or a laptop or something like that. The issue of training the workforce to adopt this new technology is huge, and a lot of people are very afraid. They're very afraid of it. And finally, in the prove it thing, they want to prove that things are reliable before they adopt them. So the chart that you're seeing here shows three technologies that we presented to the user, and we asked them, how likely, what would be their concerns about using each one of these technologies? And there's one on the dark blue one on the left is the 4 to 20 milliamp HART. The Ethernet APL is the second technology, and then Ethernet APL with a single device information model is the third technology. And you can see very clearly that there's very few concerns with using the existing technology across any of those three dimensions. In fact, skills of technician wasn't even mentioned regarding 4 to 20 milliamp HART because everybody knows how to use it. But for some of these other technologies, there's a lot of concern about adopting them prior to having questions about security, training, and reliability addressed. We asked kind of a follow-up question on this as well. And this chart here shows the summary of a question where we asked, would you be willing to use a new technology in your facility? Yes, no, maybe. Those were the responses that you could give. And we tracked that by application. So I think what's really interesting to see here is where 4 to 20 milliamp HART technology really is strongly preferred in the safety, regulatory control, and even in the supervisory control applications. And you see the newer technologies, wireless HART, Ethernet APL, single device information model, being predominantly considered for the monitoring and optimization layer. Now remember, I said that that layer is going to be growing. There's going to be a lot of growth in monitoring and optimization with inexpensive sensors and things like that. So this isn't necessarily a bad thing for those technologies. It's just you have to be careful about the application and making ubiquitous statements about digital transformation is going to take place everywhere, all the time, and very quickly. So, but the new technologies do have a lot of benefits coming to them, and particularly I want to talk a little bit about Ethernet APL. This is a fantastic new technology that will be coming out in 2021, and what's unique about it is you put in one infrastructure, one Ethernet-enabled infrastructure, and on that infrastructure you can run multiple protocols across the same wires. So you can run Profinet devices, you can run Ethernet IP devices, you can run hard IP devices. So you put in this infrastructure, and then as your systems change or as your instrumentation choices change, you're no longer tied to a given specific protocol. You can use whatever you want on the same infrastructure. This will have 10 megabit per second full duplex operation. 1,000-meter cable lengths in some instances, 200-meter cable lengths in others, and it will be intrinsically safe, and it will be able to be deployed in hazardous environments. The physical layer is being developed, and there have been numerous tests, and at NAMOR this year where there was a report on a test that BASF did on Ethernet APL in one of their facilities late last year. Maybe you'll hear more about that during the course of the days ahead. People are using this are starting to adopt these new technologies in prototype and in proof of concept applications. This slide talks about the NAMOR open architecture device information model and the PADIM, which is FieldComm Group's device information model. NOAA information model, NOAA IM, is an information model for process automation systems. So in other words, it's a software description using OPA for all of the things that can operate in a plant, not just the process instrumentation, but actuation systems and modules and things like that. PADIM, FieldComm Group's technology that Ted's going to give you a little bit more of a background on, is the information model for process automation instruments. And that's where we're staking our claim, because we're kind of the home of process automation device protocols, and we have been for over 30 years. So both are targeted at enabling the monitoring and optimization applications envisioned in the NAMOR architecture, and both are starting to be deployed. In fact, in November of last year, at the NAMOR general meeting, there was a pretty good sized demo put together with multiple vendors that were showing the use of prototype versions of the process automation device information model across a couple of applications. One application was a device to asset management system using FieldComm Group's FDI technology. And the other example was a device to cloud application using a handheld and an application developed by Anders Hauser. And these demonstrations were enabled, frankly, by FieldComm Group technology, PADIM plus OPC-UA. Here's a little drill down on another portion of the same demo. This is an edge gateway device that has been created by CodeRights, one of FieldComm Group's members, and a great author of some of the key components of the FDI specification. This combines HART devices with HART IP I/O into an IoT edge gateway that's speaking HTTPS up to a cloud-based application. It's operational in prototype form, and we're actually planning some field trials using this type of system for later this year. So it's been, the technology has taken off. We're trying to address market needs, and we're trying to work with other organizations to make sure that there's kind of harmony as digital transformation becomes a reality. And to talk more about that, Ted's going to come up and wrap things up for us.
Thanks, Paul. Paul's been instrumental in putting together a lot of these strategies and demonstrations and things like that. Digital transformation, of course, is driving a lot of change in our industry and a lot of new technologies. So the new technologies require a lot of work from standard organizations, a lot of work in terms of spec development and testing and making sure from the field level all the way to the integration level to the cloud level that everything works interoperable across not just the field devices but the data. So one of my key roles really has been to work and cooperate and agree on certain standards with other organizations. I really kind of serve two masters, the process automation industry and our members, which are largely suppliers. And those two groups should go hand in hand. There's a bit of a problem if they don't. But both suppliers and the industry want not the creation of many more new standards. They want standards organizations to agree on certain standards, so there's really less standards more broadly adopted, and that takes a lot of collaboration with our peers. So we're working with all of the major standards organizations that support the process automation industry. ODVA is one. ODVA is now working with us on adopting FDI technology, and we work very closely with them also in the Ethernet APL team. P&O, we're very close with P&O as co-owners of FDI technology and work together on just about everything. OPA Forum, of course, is a member, and as a member can leverage existing specifications and use these in their own. And OPC Foundation is also a very key partner of ours. Of course, FDI and PADM are both developed around the OPC UA device information model. So we work very closely with all these groups, and we're trying to agree and align to make it simpler for users and suppliers to have more important but less standards. PADM is especially important. This is the industry's device information model. I bring up a lot of updates on this because we originally announced this at ARC in 2018. In 2019, we are gaining support and still a lot of work on the specification, and we had a proof of concept demonstration. And then now here in 2020, the spec is finally completed. We're gathering and incorporating some comments from the balloting process, but this spec is finally finished in its version 1, and really puts forward a great device information model for devices, for the parameters, making them machine readable so you can use the data with analytics and things like that. So we're really proud to have that completed. There's a lot of PADM is really fits this evolutionary path that Paul mentioned. Right now, through edge gateways, the PADM device information model can represent the device in the cloud as a digital twin. As we go into new physical layers like Ethernet IP, it will also enable those future devices to sit right next to a 20-year-old device and share the same information model to be compatible at the cloud level. And then FieldComm Group is working on a new device of the future, if you will, which would have PADM resident right within the device. So PADM fits that requirement of merging the install base with the future as well. It of course has very broad cooperation by many of the large companies, and the organizations of FieldComm Group, ODVA, and Profibus are all aligned and working together on the standard. The timeline, as Paul mentioned, would really culminate in putting devices on the demonstration wall in Acoma in 2021. So we're all working really hard on that, the specifications, the conformance practices, and actual physical devices for demonstration in 2021. So that's just wanted to capture what's new this year. As Paul said, this is really just an update session to keep you informed on where we're working, but we have made significant progress in the year 2019 to announce here in 2020. PA-DIM, of course, is an area where we've actually finished the spec now since our last time that we met here. We are working on version 2. The next version will add some additional process assets, such as analyzers and things like this. We're also very in sync with Namur, and we're aligning PA-DIM to fit the needs of the more comprehensive, more open architecture information model as well. So they're in our plans in terms of the roadmap for PA-DIM. And we also accomplished the agreement with OPC Foundation to share this IP with other organizations. We don't want to create this IP and own this IP. We want everyone to be able to adopt the standard freely of PA-DIM for the betterment of the industry. FDI, we've been working on FDI. As Paul mentioned, things go relatively slowly in our industry. We've been working on FDI since the inception of FieldComm Group, and in fact, that was one of the reasons for development of FieldComm Group, to be the home of FDI. But we're finally seeing some evidence out in the world that it is changing the industry. We've spent a bunch of money and completed a lot of projects around FDI. We built a tool set for all of our suppliers of devices to build device packages. We'll have roughly a little over 300 license users at the end of the year as we're migrating them all to a single FDI tool. We've completed also a project to build a set of host components that are operator system independent, and selling initial sales of those are in-house, and this will allow handhelds to use FDI as well. And we've established and agreed upon a mandatory date for registering a device. You'll need to register a device with a device package at the end of the year. And of course, we have a repository for use by the industry, by users and suppliers, to keep all these packages in one location. So a lot of progress, and a lot of evidence of the coming of FDI, with over 300 suppliers having the tools to develop them. We're also growing year by year. It's not rocket pace, but we've continued to grow every single year since the inception of FieldComm Group. We're now up to 375 members, and we're getting the message out wider in the world. We've actually added organizations in India and the Middle East since I've been here, in addition to our existing Europe and Japan and Asia, China, and the U.S. Areas. So we're getting a lot of exposure and doing a lot more out in the world, and collaborating and doing a lot of these activities in the FieldComm Group working group to continue to lead the industry for digitalization and collaborate with everyone through this venue. So that's kind of the summary for 2019, but I hope we have a little bit of time, 6 minutes, okay? So both Paul and I could entertain whatever questions you might have.